Great to have your company on NBL Now, your daily hit of everything that you need to know happening right across the NBL. Of course, it is for Code Sports. And this is a little bit more than just a Thursday morning preview of the round coming up, because the New Orleans Pelicans are in town. Vibes are high, and we've got a whole lot to talk about this morning. I'm Jack Heverin from Code Sports. Mick Randall joins me. Mick, there's just this very special feeling in the air, I think, because not only is this round an interesting one, but the Pelicans are here and they're all smiles right now.
I wrote yesterday, there's a bit of mystique about. Even, Geordie Hunter was in the press conference with Zion and Willie Green and, all the NBL, the Melbourne United and Phoenix guys. And he said, you can feel it, you're walking around the city and, even though it was out at courtside and they had all the, luxury coach buses that, worth millions of dollars and this procession of, $1 billion NBA stars walking in and out. And it's the first time I've ever gone to an interview and had a sniffer dog standing there and they've said, look, take your bag off, put it on the ground. And I'm sitting there going, I was wondering, what have I got in my bag here?
It's
really interesting.
Try and help us understand a little bit, Mick, just how different this is compared to, obviously, you've been covering the NBL for a long time now. But when an NBA team comes to town, there are heightened expectations, greater security, as you mentioned, just a whole raft of things that are a bit different to what we're used to.
Yeah, look, I covered when Team USA came out sort of on the periphery, but sort of seeing this up close, you do realise how different it is. I mean, like basically an entire Qantas jet was booked out and they had 150 people fly over. That's all, like for 20 players. It's like that's all the support staff, families. They have 7 assistants. Southeast Melbourne just signed a third assistant, so they have 4 coaching staff. This team has a head coach, a associate head coach, and then 7 assistants below. So it's so far apart. I mean, Zion earns more money in a season than what every player in the NBL earns. Like that's the sort of gulf. He's staying he's in the villa, I've been told, which is, right at the top of Crown Towers, or, it's like $5,000 a night or something.
I've heard about it. I've never seen it, obviously. I've only heard about these things. Speaking of Zion, I mean, he's the big ticket item. There are some other players within this Pelicans team that are really interesting. We'll talk about a couple, but Zion's the one that everyone's looking at. He's got the brand new physique, which is doing all sorts of comments and views on social media at the moment. He was all smiles at the press conference yesterday. He seems like he's in a really good space.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess like insight from that is you sort of sit there and you go, gee, these guys are so well media trained, because, I think there was a few questions that he got that, like, I reckon he might have sat there and gone, I don't really know this guy, or I'm not sure. And he just was fantastic the way he answered. And, and they asked him about Dash Daniels, and it's like, Dash is big news here and he's big news in like draft boards, but you wonder how much a guy like Zion would know about him, right? But he was great, like he sort of said, like, okay, I played with Dyson and from the tape that I've watched of Dash, they look like they're similar players. They defend similarly. And he even said that, he used to talk to Dyson and say, like, I want to incorporate some of the things you do defensively with the way that you read plays and deflect. I want to incorporate that into my game. So they're so well media trained that there's not one question that you could ask where they're going to blow up or not have an answer for. It was just great. And he laughed and joked with Geordie Hunter about, I think, the Phoenix put out something, him saying, if Zion's coming down the lane, what are you going to do? Is go, oh, well, I'll stay there, try and defend him and hope I don't, fracture my sternum or something. So, it was just fun. And then, Dean Vickerman's on the end going, hey, everyone's excited about Zion and having the Pelicans here. And he was just excited about Joe Dumars being there because he's an old, Detroit Pistons bad boy fan. So, there's levels to it, right?
What's about Jordan Poole? You had the chance to sit down with him. It's one of the big, sort of from a New Orleans Pelicans perspective, Zion's the big ticket item, but Jordan Poole's a star in his own right. How was that experience to sit down with him?
Yeah, so, it's like you sort of, I've talked to lots of NBA guys, the Aussie guys, your Josh Giddey's and Dysons and, Joe Ingles and those types of guys. And they're always good, but you never know when, Americans coming over, they've just got off the plane. It's only been, a few hours and they've had a practice and sit down. You're like, okay, how's this going to go? But, he came, sat down, and the first thing he says is starts commenting about my glasses. And he's like, oh, yeah, he goes, oh, yeah, I wear glasses too. I've got 50 pairs. And we both said, oh, we always lose them all the time. So it's like, straight away, ice is broken. Yeah, he was great. And you never know, like they come over and they've seen it all and, they travel the world and they get paid the big bucks. But it felt like he was genuinely excited to go, yeah, like it's awesome to be in Australia and I'm going to be part of history. I'm going to be, part of the first NBA team to play on Australian soil against NBL teams. So it was cool. And, he talked a bit about, he's got a passion for movies and he's sort of fallen in love with F1 after the F1 movie. And he's like, shout out to Oscar Piastri. That's my guy. So, they're just like us, they're like you and I, mate. They're just paid way, way more than
just paid a hell of a lot more than what we are. Absolutely. So much more athletic. So we shouldn't forget in amongst all this. I mean, the Pelicans are here, obviously, and they attract all the attention, but it is enormous for Melbourne United and it's enormous for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix on Sunday as well. They seem pretty calm and pretty relaxed at the press conference yesterday, but how do you think their preparations are coming along? Because they're a part of history here too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's two sides to it, right? So it's like you know that there's like high performance teams sitting there going, oh God, we've got this we've started our season and we're having a 2-week break with the NBA game and hoping that there's no injuries and how do we get through 48 minutes and all that. But then the other side of it is like, you've got Malik Lewis, right? And I had a good chat with him a couple of days ago and he's like, oh, look, I'm just treating it like another game. And he was, playing the straight bat. And then I'm like, but mate, come on, you must be excited. And he's sort of like, the smile started to come out. He's like, yeah, like this is where I want to be and this is where I want to get to. So there's that element, you've got an Alan Foxwell who, he's just, 22 years old and it's like a veteran in the NBL, right? He's been 5-6 seasons, right? But, look, he's not in his prime. Something happens. He has a late leap and the NBA beckons. It's like he goes and has a big game and someone sees something out of him. It's like, hey, we're going to watch that kid. So there's just so many angles to it for these guys. And even like a veteran like Milton Doyle, like he was playing a real straight bat, but it's like inside him, he's going, hey, this is kind of cool.
Open training session today. And then, of course, tomorrow night at Rod Laver Arena. Great to have hoops back at Rod Laver Arena too, Mick. I know we're similar ages and for those listening in Melbourne, that was my childhood going to Rod Laver every week to watch the Southeast Melbourne Magic play. So even just that side of things, to have a bigger venue and hoops back at Rod Laver, even that's a really cool part of this whole thing.
I always, anytime like we've had games at Rod Laver, like when we had, the Boomers games and that, I always just compare it to Magic versus Tigers. I'm like, nothing's touched that yet. I wonder if, these games will do it.
We've got to pull the trigger on that sooner rather than later. Hey, let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the NBL, of course, this weekend. And tonight, this doubleheader tonight is tantalising. Cairns and Adelaide first up. From a news point of view, are we expecting to see Nick Ravasevich play for Adelaide, 6'11" big man?
So, yeah, well, what I've been told is that, he got in yesterday and Mike Wells wants him to play. And I don't know how much he will, but and it's funny, like you go, oh, he's had all these flights and stuff, but like the NBA guys have just had a 16-hour long haul as well. So it's like he might come out. Like I'm almost certain he'll be suited up, and I think they'll try him out and just see how he goes. That's I guess the starting point for life without Trez, right? Like they've got sort of one replacement, and they still will have an opportunity to have another one. But I'm pumped for it. I spoke to Zion Chieftain, and I should mention that he was a rookie the same season that Zion Williamson was,
yes,
and played in their first summer league game when they had the earthquake at the end of it, and it was cancelled at the end. So and he was like, he talked a bit about being part of the Pelicans and the Zion show, and one of the great things he said is he walked out at into the Thomas and Mack Center in that game, and Floyd Mayweather's on the sideline, and LeBron James is on the side. He's like I could have shook their hands. It was that close. It's like that's how big the show is. And he said that he landed in Detroit one night at 2 a.m. They get to the hotel and there's a couple of thousand people waiting to get a look at Zion. And that shows you, that sort of gap. But he talked a lot about Adelaide as well. I did digress a little. And he sort of said that the Trez stuff was weird for them because obviously the players are in the dark as much as everyone else is. And that's the way that it should be because there's a lot of legalities and things going on in the background. But, they've sort of just had to go, all right, support him as much as they could. And now it's next man up. They've got a job to do. And the great line was, I'm willing to go to the depths of hell to bring Adelaide a championship, which is, I think it's going on 22 decades, 22 years since they last won one. Like, he's the kind of guy, like, I've been told that a lot of these guys, like, him, Isaac White, Michael Harris, like, they don't have an off switch. So you have to, you almost have to save them from themselves. And I said that to Zion, and he said, yeah, look, I've probably got to take responsibility for that because, I'm just nonstop. I don't stop. And I think with Bryce Cotton in there as well, I think that's going to be just great for Adelaide.
And then, of course, the open air game tonight. Now, this is fascinating. Quite often, and you go to so many press conferences, Mick, that quite often you can go there and get almost nothing out of press conferences. But in the space of 3 days, the Perth Wildcats, first there was Mason Jones talking to Channel 10 in Perth and saying, I own it. It's been a pretty average start to the season for me, but stick with me. And then Joe Luala-Chul at his press conference was asked repeated questions about JaVale McGee, and in the end just said, hey, look, I know what you're trying to do here, and it's not about us.
I know Joe very well, and he's always had you'd know it as well. He's always had a little prickly relationship with the media. I like to think that he doesn't like anyone in the media, but he just likes me a little bit more than anyone else. But, haven't dealt with him for so long. But, look, he's always like that. But I think, what did he say? He said, like, I don't care if he scores 60 as long as we win, right? So, and that would be his attitude. But I want to see those two have 30 and 15 each and just hammer each other. Like, that would be the spectacle for me. And then the Mason Jones thing was weird, wasn't it? Like, what was he, 0 of 9 and just gets benched for Jerron Riley and he comes on and hits like this incredible clutch 3. And it's like, hey, everyone that was saying, they've hired JR's kid. It's like, well, this is why we did it.
That's right. Yeah, I think any cries of nepotism are out the window now after what we saw from him. On Illawarra, I guess we haven't really got a resolution yet on the Ja'Cory McLaughlin situation. Now, he is in the lineup at the moment, and don't want to be disrespectful to him, obviously, but with Will Hickey out, there's a need for him. Will it stay this way for the season, do you think, or will we see a change at the point guard spot?
It's funny, like, we always just sort of talk about it as, we always say, he's got to go, right? He's not good enough, not up to it, blah, blah. But there's a human side to this as well, right? And there's so much that goes into it that we don't know. I mean, what we sort of understand and believe is that, he was JT's guy. He saw him while he was coaching at Polita JR and said, yeah, let's bring him over, give him a go. And there was a bit of a bidding war between Illawarra and Perth, and they pulled the trigger on that. He had that big game in the Blitz, and, whether it's fair or not, I sort of go like that might have been him having that big game was like, okay, gave, whoever was pushing to sign him to say, well, look what he's done. So let's do it, give him a chance. Hasn't worked out for him yet. They have to have him, right? Because without Will Hickey, who's going to do the ball handling for him? There's just not enough initiation and not enough creators at the moment. But look, I can't sit here and say, hey, he's going to be there all season, or they're going to move on from him when Will Hickey goes. But he's certainly not Trey Kell, and I think for them to be successful, they need a Trey Kell type, especially to play alongside Tyler Harvey, because I think a big facilitating point guard who can score makes Harvey so much better.
Just quickly before we let you go, Mick, there is a import spot available within the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix franchise. Josh King has said that they wanted to take a little bit of time just to have a look at who they are as a team and then work out what they need. Would the throwdown result have maybe just forced them to quicken their thinking up a little bit?
It's a hard one because I think they know that they need someone else who can just get a bucket like Sobey, right? They need a second scorer. So there's not a lot of them about, right? It's like, it's not just say they just, it's like, okay, you got to find someone that fits with your culture, find someone that's going to go and defend 94 feet like he wants you to do, and then come out and go back in. And, you've got to, if you're going to go to a club, you've got to fit in with that club. Otherwise, it's just going to blow it up. And they do have quite a good culture in there, right? They're all sort of bought in, but they just need that piece that's going to get them a bucket, right? It's like, oh, you can't just give it a Sobey and say, mate, go and score, like if it gets bogged down and we're in the half court. So, I think there is I think they will try and sign someone out of Europe because guys that have like FIBA experience, because, you know, that's Josh King's thing, right? Like he wants guys that understand it, but I wish I could give more insight and say, hey, it could be this guy, it could be that guy, but I just don't know. But I think you'll find it'll be someone that can get themselves a bucket.
Everything that you need to know about the NBL, and of course the NBA games coming up this weekend. Mick's done a power of work already. It's all available at codesports.com.au. It's got you covered like no one else, so jump online today for insider access on and off the court at codesports.com.au. Mick, we're all just a small part of history in the next few days, and you are too as well. So thanks for joining us this morning.
Very exciting. Thanks, mate.
We will catch you next time on NBL Now.